Hey everyone, I'm Mike with Bad Goblin Games with a brief introduction video to Trailer Park Warlords of the Apocalypse. In this video, I'll be covering the background of the game, some of the gameplay themes, as well as the stuff you need to play the game. Let's start off with the background. Trailer Park Warlords of the Apocalypse is a 28mm miniatures, small-scale skirmish game. This simply means that rather than controlling hundreds or dozens of miniatures, you will instead use somewhere around 4 to 10 miniatures per side. This game is set in the future after a series of events have devastated the Earth, effectively resetting civilization to an extent. And now the survivors are attempting to put society back together. Though thanks to fallout, nanotechnology, genetic testing, artificial intelligence, and so on, humans aren't alone. They share the world with mutated humans, mutated intelligent animals, mutated intelligent plants, and sentient or self-thinking robots. The survivors have banded together, creating massive trailer parks that we refer to as mega trailer parks. So these are trailer parks that are hundreds of miles in size, perhaps thousands of miles in size. Now obviously that's a bit ridiculous, though this is a game with fire-breathing chickens, mutants that zap in and out of reality, and so on, so don't get too hung up on what's realistic. The mega trailer parks are overrun with rival gangs, each of which is overseen by a warlord. These gangs are doing the usual gang things, right? They're fighting for turf, they're fighting for resources, trying to even old scores, and so on. And so the miniatures you control belong to one of these gangs. We have about a dozen gangs outlined in the book, though the assumption is that there's an untold number of gangs out there, so we encourage everyone to come up with their own gang. From a gameplay perspective, this is not a serious game in which you'll be planning, say, 2 turns ahead on how to execute, or when to execute the perfect, wheeling action, or time the perfect flank attack. This is more of a beer and pretzels type of game. We want you to throw your miniatures on the table, not literally, just kind of put your miniatures on the table and just play. And when the opportunity presents, give your friend on the opposite side of the table a good friendly taunting or good friendly mocking. Now let's turn our attention now to what you need to play the game, or in some cases, stuff that's just nice to have. If you are an experienced miniature gamer, then much of this will be familiar to you. If you aren't an experienced miniature gamer, don't be intimidated by what you see. It really isn't much, and in many cases, or maybe in most cases today, it's really less than what you need with board games. First, as this is a miniatures game, you will need miniatures. I recommend at least 4 miniatures per player, though 8 to 10 will give you more flexibility. The game is designed with 28mm miniatures in mind, though you can really use whatever scale you want. Here are some examples of a line of miniatures that we're releasing. We're going to have at least 40 miniatures in our line. Hopefully we'll be able to get some more out. The line's going to include humans, mutants, animals, robots, and plants. And while we would really like it if you use our miniatures, you can really use whatever you want. Next up are dice. We use dice for randomization and task resolution. Specifically, we use D10s. There's really nothing special about these dice. There are no funky symbols to interpret, just good old-fashioned numbers. We recommend each player has at least 5, though 10 works much better. We use several decks of cards in the game, and in the gameplay video, we'll get into more detail about the function of each of these cards. The important thing to remember here is that the only deck that is required are these Apocalypse cards. These other cards you see here, the mechanisms, the morphologies, and the mutations, they're nice to have as reference material. The only deck that's required is the Apocalypse deck, and each player will need their own deck. One of the big benefits of skirmish games is the terrain. Whereas big battle games can often get bogged down if you have too much terrain on the table, the opposite tends to be true with skirmish games. Nice looking and maybe more importantly, interesting terrain can really be the difference between a dull or exciting game. You can see here a few examples of terrain. These small pieces are what we refer to as scatter terrain. And while they're small, they play an important part in the game. Not only can they serve as cover, they can really help your table actually look as if it's alive. You can bring your table alive rather than just looking like an empty trailer park. having some couches out there, some vending machines, some furniture, and so on can really give the impression that someone actually lives in that trailer park. You also see some trailers here. Now, as you can expect from the game's name, we tend to use a lot of trailers in our games, though we play plenty of games without trailers as well. And this is one of the nice aspects of the game's setting. The assumption is that these mega trailer parks, grew and consumed everything in their path. So not only can you play among trailers, you can set your games in strip malls, shopping malls, small towns, mini golf courses, theme parks, rail yards, and so on. So really, in regard to terrain, just about anything is fair game. The last couple of items that you need to play the game is something to measure, right? Because you have to measure when you move. When you're shooting a gun, you got to measure to make sure that your target is within range. We use inches for our game, so you'll need something that measures in inches. If you want to convert to centimeters, that's perfectly fine. So whatever you use, you'll need something to measure. You'll also want tokens to mark conditions throughout the game. And the same thing here, it's kind of true. You can really use whatever you want for tokens, so as long as they're small, they don't get in the way. We tend to use these cubes. We also have these little acrylic cutouts that we use. Though again, anything small, so you can use pennies, jelly beans, small poker chips, whatever works. We'll finish up this video with a couple of items that are nice to have, though not required. First off are these initiative dials. We use a blind bid system for initiative, and we cover that more in the gameplay video. So while these dials aren't required, they do help with that blind bid system. So effectively, when you're bidding, you're just going to pick out a number, and you're going to turn your dial to whatever number you want it to be. Along the same lines are these tracker boards. We use these tracker boards to keep track of our initiative pools, the turn counter, points scored, and so on. Again, not required, though helpful. And we'll show you how we use these in that gameplay video as well. That'll do it for our intro video. Please hit us up in the comments or in our Facebook group if you have any questions or suggestions. Thanks for watching.